Greetings, dear viewers. Welcome to Diaspora Point. This is your host, Auma Bella. Today, we have a young man who is going to talk to us about Kenyan politics, an area that we have not touched since we started this podcast 6 months ago. We are looking forward to it. He's going to walk us through it, and we are excited about it. Bruce, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Well, I'm Bruce Michael Bongo, a political analyst, and with great acumenship in terms of what happens in our political landscape in Kenya. Thank you.
You're welcome, Bruce. Karibu sana.
Yeah.
Now, Kenya is currently at a very unusual place. We have never seen our country this way before, especially politically. How do you think we got here?
Well, if I would broach this elucidation onto what's happening in Kenya, we have to confirm that on the 27th of August, the year 2010, we promulgated a new constitution in our country. The reason as to why we did this is that we had a past of the year 2007 when we had the most marginalized part of our society, the women, the children. It appeared that atrocities that happened in 2007 really did make them like, the African Osmanlis who are completely disarrayed and sent to the dogs. And that's the reason why when we had this new constitution, we decided now to ensure that there is a space for women. That's why we had the Women Empowerment Fund, the Youth Fund, and everything. In matters touching on inequality in terms of development and the rest, we came up with the devolved units. We touched on everything in our country. What we have today only shows you that we have a political class that are, ultra presidentarians of the real game. They do not have the understanding and the heart to really solve the Kenyan problems today. Why am I saying this? We just witnessed the other week the exchange of vows between the leader of opposition and the president. Now, come to look into it clearly. Out of the 10 points agenda, the 10 points that they had, there is nothing new in it. In the previous handshake, we had Agenda 4. Nobody told us how this Agenda 4 were really articulated, how it worked out, what were the gains and notes. Now we have the 10 points agenda. Now there is a reason as to why there is a sequence in giving out these numbers. Why is this one number 1 and why is this one number 7 and why is the other one number 10? Now, number 1 on these 10 items is the implementation of the NADCO report. Now, go and look into the NADCO report. The NADCO report completely introduces the office of the Prime Minister. What are we doing? We are mutilating the same constitution. We had this baby called the new constitution, but we are strangling this baby. He has never lived to have the 3 meals per day. Every other time we have to change things. We have not seen this happening elsewhere. And that's the reason as to why our Kenyan political system is a system that cannot be used internationally for benchmarking, and it can also not be used for any reference cross-border because it's based purely on what we call the selfish interest. Now, if you look into how even our economy is doing currently, you're going to realize that we have got 2 factors that drive the economy. We look at the inflation. We also look at the interest rates. For example, you'd realize that our budget deficit is lower than for the United States of America. But if you come to Kenya, you are going to realize that we overtax our people, and America is not doing that. We take our youths to be like a baggage. But this was informed by, what China did the other time by ensuring that, the youths are the strength of the economy. They ensured that they had good skills and everything. Now, if you look at what is happening in Kenya, we are sending our graduates to go and do menial jobs in Saudi Arabia. Very sad.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of the political class, indeed, the political class is messing up this country.
Yeah.
The political class, as many people say, they are like that thing that eats wood.
Mm-hmm.
It's just eating and eating and eating, and it's never enough.
Very parasitic.
Yes, very parasitical. And what is happening to the ordinary person is not only that they're disenfranchised, but the political class seem to reach out and take the last bit of piece of whatever, money, food, anything that the regular regular citizens have. This is a very sad situation. And this translates into the kind of opulence, the opulent life that the political class like to have. The opulence that they are practicing or showing off is a sign of wastage of public resources. And of course, this ended up in having the Gen Zs protest against shameless opulence and wastage of public resources, and also to protest against a budget that was just totally unsustainable for the regular person. Now, the Gen Zs called us out, called the political class out. I'm not part of the political class, but they called out the political class. This did not end very well, even though it ended up that the president dropped the budget and was not tabled anymore in parliament. But at what price? The Gen Zs died. We lost lives of young, brilliant people. This is something that Kenyans are very concerned about. And I know the Gen Zs are still concerned about it. Where are the Gen Zs right now? Are they together, or were they killed and scattered and are totally unable to get themselves together again and do anything else? I mean, what happened to them was devastating. Nothing is worse than death, and the numbers were high. What is happening with the Gen Zs now?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Exactly. When we go back, especially on the 25th of June, the year 2024, the young people, the populace of this country came out. I was one of them. We did great to soldier on. We did great to do a retooling to some of us who never even did the finance courses and everything, to make them understand exactly what the budget process looks like. Indeed, the president decided now to put aside the punitive finance bill. But we've had series of other, budgets that have always been taken to parliament, this for, to cater for some of these, the pending bills, whatever. And we have realized that that is the hot cake, the area where there is too much of corruption, because there is a lot of pecuniaries around that system of budgeting and everything. But again, if you look into what is happening in this country today, we were fighting to have, the freedom, economic freedom in our country. But the president misunderstood this to mean that we wanted political stability. Instead of working for the common mwananchi to make issues of economy, accountability, and the war against corruption come out, he decided now to call for assistance from Raila Amolo Odinga, the leader of opposition, a seasoned one who is well respected in the country. He decided now to work on the political stability. And we know what political stability is in Africa. We saw this during the first handshake between Right Honorable Raila and Moi. We saw this between Right Honorable Raila and Kibaki, Right Honorable Raila and Uhuru Kenyatta, and today we have it with William Samoei Ruto. It is very expensive. You see, I just told you that we brought the new constitution to cater for everybody. The women, those people who live with the disabilities, every other person. And also in terms of inclusivity, we even had slots to have, the marginalized, the women had their slots, the women reps. Now today we have those that represent the youths and every other person. Imagine now we bring into fore again another team of the opposition to an extent that we do not know who reports to who. You see, we are already messing it down. And no one is talking about, for example, no one wants to talk about the Auditor General report. No one wants, the Auditor General report comes and the following day, their response, instead of the members of parliament taking on to this report to ask pertinent questions, they have decided to underfund the Auditor General's office with a tune of over 700 million, which is so sad.
It's too sad because the Auditor General and the Auditor General and her counterparts, those seem to be the only check and balance we have in this country. And now punishing the Auditor General
and the control of budget.
And the control of budget, and that's what I skipped my mind for a minute. Those are the two that to us look like they are the checks and balances in a country that is drifting at sea. Now, indeed, the opposition leader, the leader of the biggest opposition party, ODM, Orange Democratic Party, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, former Prime Minister, is a man who has been respected for years. He has been so respected to the extent that he got the coveted title of Baba. Nobody else in this country ever got Baba, not even our founding President Kenyatta. Now, what he has done in this situation, which is not clear to the people, it doesn't look like he's opposition anymore. It looks like he's in the government. People are despondent. And when he got into that agreement with the president, President Ruto, some people cried tears. Some people cried tears. And this is because he was the last hope for many Kenyans. Kenyans saw him drifting, but they didn't realize it was that bad. So now, how will Raila ever recoup himself?
Well,
will he ever recoup himself? Because now it doesn't look like all his life he has fought for the wananchi, the regular citizen.
Now, if you look into it clearly, you're going to realize that in Africa, we are told to respect our elders. But what do you do at a point when your oppressor is drowning you and the elder is coming with an acid to pour into the water? It's not helping you.
No.
That is the reason as to why we have decided to come out. We are very much mad simply because of the timing. Raila Amolo Odinga joined this government at a time when Kenya was at its worst. That is the only problem that we are having. If you look, in accounts, what I did, we do much studies in the patterns. It is only shocking and ignominious to someone who do not understand patterns. Now let us look at the patterns. We saw it last year when the president and his former deputy Rigathi Gachagua were not having some good bromance between them. At that time, we saw President William Ruto together with Raila Amolo Odinga and Museveni in Uganda.
Yeah, very surprising.
At that time, immediately there was the call for the AUC seat. There was that pronouncement. Immediately after that pronouncement, we had of the 4 ODM people who are now injected into the government. Immediately after that injection of these 4, the 4 lieutenants into the government, we saw now Gachagua being ejected out and several other things. This is not really helping the Kenyan population.
No.
The youths of this country want to know, why is it that SHA is not working? We have a presidency that is not concerned with checks and balances, but we are going to ask these questions. Number one, if you look into the SHA system, we have used over 104 billion shillings to buy the system that works. But we have only come to realize after the Auditor General's report that the system is not domiciled in Kenya.
Let me explain to those who don't know SHA. SHA is the medical system. It's the new medical system which has replaced the old one, which was in place and which was working for Kenyans. There's a social health something.
Social health authority. And this one came as a resolution by the African Union that all African countries should now have the universal health cover for all the citizens.
But is it being implemented correctly? Because it seems like now it has thrown into disarray
the
health system of this country.
Tanzania is having their own. The only difference is that Tanzania, they tailored their system to work for their people. Kenya's system has been tailored so as to have pecuniaries, to have loopholes where funds would be fleeced. It is so sad to an extent that we are asking questions. You see, the CS for Health, the Minister for Health, was not able to answer questions at the Senate plenary at a time when we have got several patients who are not being helped, to get the medical care that they want. We are asking this question because in Kenya, you come to realize that even the medical instrumentation and also the medical consumables that we have in our country, do you know the reason as to why they are very expensive? It is intentional. Why is it that the government of Kenya decides to tax just the drug for a drug that comes from, from China? But if you have your own factory in Kenya that you can be able to, manufacture these drugs and bring it, they will tax you for the packaging and tax you for the drug. And at the end of the day, you are going to have all these factors of production to be very expensive, and for you to give back, have your profit and everything.
Yes.
You'll have had to now raise that, the purchasing price.
So imported drugs are cheaper than if Kenyans were to make their own drugs.
Exactly.
That explains why we don't have drugs, even HIV drugs.
Yeah.
All these years now. I understand that the ODM, of course, being the oldest opposition party in Kenya, had authorized Raila Odinga to go ahead and help President Ruto, because at that time, the Gen Zs, whom I adore myself, the Gen Zs, even though they did a wonderful job of challenging, what was wrong with Kenya, making the points that were very, very sound points, they didn't have leadership. And so it is said that if these young people, if Raila tipped his weight to the Gen Zs, which is what was expected, because he has always been the people's president. If he tipped his support to the Gen Zs and they have no leadership, the ruling of a nation, the governing of a nation cannot work on a vacuum. And that if he did that, the country would go to chaos. And people point at Sudan, where young people fought and died on the streets and were able to dislodge al-Bashir, a very powerful strongman. But now look, Sudan is in chaos. Is that a reasonable comparison? Is that a reasonable way of thinking? Because somehow Raila thought if he went into Ruto's camp, if he, supported Ruto, President Ruto, and gave Ruto some people who had good skills to manage the government, then it would do something. Has it made a difference? Are these people really doing something different that could help the country, or they're just doing more of the same?
Well, this is where we say that at times you don't have to go and drink all the waters of the Indian Ocean to know that it's salty or not.
Yeah.
We warned Raila early enough. No one can salvage this administration. Nobody can. The bloods of the young people are weeping, crying under this ground. Really, if you look into what even happened at the KICC, let us look at the body language and let us look at the, the optics, and let us give it a beautiful name. Now, do you know
the KICC is the signing of the agreement between former Prime Minister opposition Raila Odinga and the current president, His Excellency
William Ruto?
William Ruto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at their merger, when they were now, exchanging the vows to work well politically. Now, we understand that Raila Amolo Odinga had a pact, a coalition called Azimio. It is a conglomeration of several parties brought together.
Very good parties.
Same to also the current president, William Ruto's side. His UDA party has got, a conglomeration of other parties as well. But again, if you look into it, we had some titles as to when they were signing this. And I was very keen. Why is it that whatever they signed, the title for William Ruto was now no longer the president? It was signed William Ruto, party leader, UDA. And signed on the other end, Raila Amolo Odinga, party leader, ODM. It tells you that this was about interests. Yeah. And this also informs you the reason as to why we never had other leaders of political parties present. They were not there. Yeah. Someone like Wetangula was not there.
They were left out.
Yeah, and even Mudavadi was not there.
Yeah.
And also, if you look into it, there is power play in this game. Now, look at it categorically. You're going to also realize that Raila Amolo Odinga said, and I quote this,
yes,
that this is a new beginning, but we are not forming a coalition. And he went ahead and said that given time and also good relations, then we are going to come with a more broader and stronger relation of a coalition that is going to help Kenya in more years to come. It means that this marriage is not ending today.
It's a long term.
Yes. And now look at what William Ruto said. He said that we are going to treat Raila well, and Raila must be respected. Now, I'm a student who also did, literature. I have to ask then, Mr. President, who disrespected Raila before?
Him.
Again, who is this that was mistreating Raila? You see, these are questions that we must ask. You also know that there was to be a coalition. The only thing that they feared is, the legal implications of it. Yeah. And even Otiende Amolo, you remember, Otiende Amolo was picked to now succeed Wetangula as the Speaker of the National Assembly.
Yes.
Do you know the reason as to why Otiende Amolo is not going to get that seat?
No.
It is because Raila wants to be at the top. Oh. He wants to be at the top in terms of the pecking orders of the country. You see, if Raila just becomes a prime minister, if you go to the pecking orders, still the Speaker of the National Assembly is way ahead of him.
Yeah.
So therefore he decided it's better Otiende Amolo not to get it, but I become a prime minister. Wow. Get that? That's the reason as to why the NADCO report is coming ahead of any other thing. NADCO report is coming ahead of even the health system.
Yes.
Yeah. Ask yourself the reason as to why this is
NADCO was the national dialogue, right?
Yeah.
Out of which there was a report.
A report.
Yes.
Yeah. Between the opposition and the government.
Yeah, and this was the umbrella opposition, Azimio and all those other opposition parties.
Yeah.
And the government.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So now, if you want to ask yourself this simple question, the universal health cover system in our country under the Social Health Authority, you're going to realize that we only have a subscription of 3 million Kenyans. And we have Safaricom, which is the largest company in Kenya, private company in Kenya, with a subscription of over 21 million customers.
Yeah.
But they are able to automatically synchronize all their new products. I had my phone here when simply I could only use it to make a call. And then M-Pesa came. They did not have to change the name Safaricom.
No.
M-Pesa simply found itself on my phone
And
because I registered once.
And M-Shwari.
And M-Shwari, Okoa, and every other thing. Why is it then that the government of Kenya, instead of addressing issues of health, they have now decided to now throw away this, the former National Health Insurance Fund, come up with a new Social Health Authority, and the worst case scenario is this system will have to work in Kenya for 10 years unchallenged. And if you want to challenge it after 10 years, you only have to go to Europe to be able to put a litigation against the SHA. It is more like a Danny deal.
To Europe, to which?
Britain.
I mean, British court, or what do you mean by Europe?
British court. Why am I saying this? Because you understand that Safaricom has got a bigger, larger share of this. And this is not new in Kenya. We even had their Danny deal where they were also to work on our airport.
Yes.
Which was shrouded with lots of corruption, syndicate and conspiracy.
Yeah, and that was debunked when FBI got a hold of Adani, right?
Yeah. So we're asking ourselves, if we have a system that has been funded by the taxpayers' money, it is ours. Why is it being domiciled out? And why is it again?
So it is domiciled in Britain?
Yeah, domiciled in Britain. And again, if we have to litigate.
And this is a national social health.
Yeah. Wow. Imagine that we have to go to a court out of our jurisdiction, out of our country, out of our then where is our sovereignty? That is our question. Yeah. It is so sad that Kenya is really doing even bad diplomatically. In less than 24 hours, Sudan just told us that they are no longer going to import anything from Kenya.
Yeah, I know. They threatened our tea, and now I don't blame them. Yeah. You understand why?
Of course.
Yeah.
Like right now,
if we house their opposition to come here, not just opposition, but people who are actually fighting with them, to come here and form some kind of coalition against them. That's my understanding.
And also look into.
Then how can they trust us? But go ahead.
Yeah, look into the discontent we're having.
Yes.
We had the greatest Gen Z revolution that informed other revolutions across Africa and the world. If a country would be able to be good enough to the Kenyan Gen Zs, let's say Tanzania becomes a friend of the Gen Zs. They've allowed us, if at all they can allow us to go there, have our own meetings there. I can
they won't allow you.
I can bet here on this show that the system that is governing this country can stop in the next 24 hours.
Yes.
Because why is William Ruto doing this to a different foreign state? We've had issues in our own country. Besigye was kidnapped and handed over to go and be mistreated by Museveni.
Very illegal, very unacceptable.
Look honestly. At that. Every other person is quiet.
But even the M23 also had a meeting here in Kenya at some point. And that rubbed Sekedi very wrong.
It's not really good. And that also informs to you the reason as to why we really performed poorly at the AUC
Absolutely.
elections.
Because we are not good neighbors.
Yeah.
So
because
now
we took up this opposition role as the Gen Zs, and the
yes,
reasons as to why. Our letters went to all the African heads of states. We had to empirically tell them that this is who we are. We are the Kenyan people. Whatever is happening at, coming up with such a candidate is to tone down and deflate the opposition in Kenya. And with the youth of this country, we've died, but the few of us who remain, we are against all this kind of politics that is pegged on trying to, like right now, when we look into it clearly, there is nothing in this administration called inclusivity.
Yeah.
You see, if you talk about inclusivity, you have to talk about inclusivity with clean hands.
Yeah.
You don't talk of including Onyango at the exclusion of Kamau.
Yeah. Who was already there.
No.
Yeah.
That is really not fair.
So now, there are many people in ODM who are not happy with the direction what the authorized has taken. They were hoping that the people who are going to be incorporated in President Ruto's administration from ODM were going to be helpful. But that has not been the case. That has not been the case at all. And you can see that there are a few things that have happened that have raised eyebrows. First of all, it was that Adani deal, which CS Wandai was swearing up and down was a good deal.
Yeah.
And Wandai was supposed to be different. He's from ODM. Then there has been that 1.3 trillion shillings that was manually taken out of Treasury.
Yeah.
Under the watchful eyes of Mbadi,
Yeah.
John Mbadi, CS John Mbadi.
Yeah.
These are people from ODM. People are not happy with this. What are the Gen Z saying?
Well, we did put it clearly. It doesn't really matter how many people Ruto will bring on board. The reality is, these 4 CSs that were brought into the government from opposition, that is Joho, that is Oparanya, that is Mbadi, and also Wandai. These are like football players who are being brought into a field in the second half, around the 80th minute, only 10 minutes to have the game over.
And there's nothing they can do to change.
There's nothing they can do. They are running around like, the chickens whose heads have been chopped off, trying to score the goals, only to realize that they're 10 goals down. There's nothing they can do. Now, if you look also into it clearly, Mbadi took a toil to try and convince us that the Adani deal was so good. But we empirically said that it was wrong.
It can't be.
They really had to wait for Donald Trump, the president of America, to sanction Adani. That is what really made them have the rotten egg on their faces. And that's why they now decided to bring it back.
Yeah, well, once the FBI, sanctioned Adani, there was no way. I mean, anybody else who was accommodating Adani would also fall under the acts of FBI, and there are some laws that could make that possible. So yes, that got them afraid, and they let Adani go. And thankfully, help came for us from outside of Kenya.
Yeah.
So, what are your parting shots? Because we will have to have you again.
Well, mine is only about the great words by Machiavelli. Machiavelli said that politics requires much more of strategy than logics. He said that it requires much more strategy than logics. That is the reason as to why we have a political class that is completely disarrayed, but they only have one main focus, which is to have their own end. Yeah. And no one really cares about the plight of the poor Kenyan citizenry.
Yeah.
Now, we are moving and going to soldier on as a country, as the young people of this nation, to do away with a system that is oppressive to our people. We must emancipate ourselves and ensure that we take Kenya back into its former glory. This is not the Kenya we had. We had a really respected Kenya. I was in Ghana before this administration was brought, before this administration came into power, and Kenya was seriously respected. The calls that I get today from my friends cross-border really tells of how we perform dismally in international affairs. So sad indeed that Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta worked so hard to, put Kenya into the space that it is so much respected. There used to be a silent law anyway in Kenya's foreign policy that whenever they want to have even 7 ambassadors or 7 diplomats from our country, then at least 5 must come from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Yes, career diplomats.
Yes. But today, they are completely politicians. It tells you of how we are really doing bad. Why? Because the president wants political stability. We are not going for that. We want economic stability.
But really, is it political stability?
That is all that he wants.
I don't think it's political stability. He calls it that, right? But I think it's selfishness. It's selfish, self-seeking.
It is selfishness because he has deployed Raila to be now the danger shooter, the troubleshooter, the one who will wipe away all the mess for anything that happens.
You saw how Raila was heckled in Kisii? I think that was his first time to experience such a terrible traumatic experience.
Imagine, and 2 days before then, he was there doing what is called consultation. It tells you that he completely did the exact opposite of what those people really wanted.
And people rejected him for that. And then you see what has been happening to Ruto as he was doing his rounds in Nairobi. It has not been a nice thing. The whole union is rejected. And the people have rejected it, I think, from what I see. What do you say to that?
Well, there's nothing much I can say. If we have a president who can lie to young people of this country, children who are in high school, he goes there, Nairobi, and tells them how he's going to, procure a machine that is going to make 1 million chapatis. Oh my goodness. Look at the priorities. What should keep a child in school? Is it a chapati or is it school fee?
Yeah. They need school fees, they need quality education, they need proper classrooms, they need all those things that are lacking. Anyway, I am so grateful, Bruce, to have you here, to have a Gen Z here with us.
Thank you.
It's a great honor to have a Gen Z on this program for the first time.
Thank you.
And you have given us some really good information. We will be calling upon you again. So Kenyans and our international viewers as well, this is the Gen Z in flesh.
Thank you.
These kids fought. It's unfortunate, a lot of lives were lost, but they showed courage under fire. So, karibu sana. And we'll have you next time to talk to the people.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you.
Now, dear viewers, remember to subscribe to our podcast. Remember to give us a thumbs up. And please share widely. We bring wonderful guests like Bruce here, and we'll continue to bring them in all kinds of sectors. This one was political, and for the first time, we are doing Kenyan politics. I'm very proud to have a Gen Z. I can't tell you how proud I am. And so, kwaheri, asanteni, and come again next time.